You'll have to check that out. I haven't been yet.
Oh, do you have the slide thing? There we go. You can go back one.
That's it?
Can you go back to the first one? One more.
That's the
Oh,
first one.
okay, you couldn't go back to the two before that? Where they had our faces up there?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, here you go.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. Everyone recovering from my second night in Miami, so I'm very glad I'm leaving tonight, actually. Hi, I'm Chase Norlin. I'm the CEO of Alphabird. And the panel today is audience and monetization for the next wave of digital video publishing. We have some great panelists I'm going to introduce in a second. Rolan, Reichel is going to manage the PowerPoint here. If you can get me to the next slide, appreciate it. Yep, one more, thanks. Okay, so Alphabird, just very briefly. We are a vertically integrated digital marketing company with a publisher focus, as in web publisher or mobile publisher. And what that means is, when I explain the business to really kind of simplify it and dumb it down, is that we're in the business of doing two very basic things that all web publishers need and are interested in. One is driving audience. So how do you drive a targeted audience to a piece of content? And number two is, how do you monetize effectively that content? And those are two of the biggest problems we're trying to solve in this industry. And very briefly about Alphabird, we're one of the fastest growing companies in the space. We're about 100 people. We're a global company with offices in New York, San Francisco, where we're headquartered, Los Angeles, and Sydney, Australia. About 100 employees. And I think what's also unique about the business is that we have acquired a variety of businesses, again, to extend our offering to create this very diversified platform for serving our clients. And the landscape, very briefly, is that if you look, thank you, thanks, Rolan. If you look at these, have you ever seen these before? These Lumascapes that these investment bank called, actually Luma Partners, I think, puts out. And they put this out every couple of years, and you see all these companies on here. And this is the one for ad tech. I know some of the companies are kind of hard to read in there. But the bottom line is, the majority of the companies in there are all on the buy side. They're all on the buying of advertising sides, where a lot of the investment activity has gone over the last 5 years. And only a small sliver is on the publisher side or on the audience side. And we feel there's a really significant inequality there if you look at it. And also, you're now starting to see companies, though, on the publisher side. If you look at AdMel, which was bought by Google, and Rubicon, and PubMatic, and YieldX, and now companies like Alphabird, what we're saying is that you've got a highly fragmented business over here, and publishers control and own all of these audiences. And they're not being properly represented in the space. And so that's our mission. Our mission is to create, build, and or aggregate all these different publisher solutions to service publishers. Again, to solve those two very simple problems. How do you drive audience? And how do you effectively monetize that audience? So with that said, I'm going to introduce Rolan Reichel, who is VP of our Publisher Solutions Group, who is leading the charge to solving some of these problems. Oh, and I skipped over very briefly, sorry, Rolan.
You want to?
Just a very quick snapshot of some of our clients, so great.
Okay, can everyone hear me all right? Yes, good. Good morning, my name is Rolan Reichel. I'm the VP of our Publisher Solutions Group, and my role really at Alphabird is to work with our premium publishing partners along the lines that Chase was saying, to help monetize audiences and grow their audiences across their digital properties across the web and the way that they're working with their advertisers as well. I want to take this opportunity to introduce David Bramble. He's a senior business manager at MSN Microsoft based in Seattle, and has been a very solid longtime partner of Alphabird as well, and is joining us on the panel here today. So David Bramble, welcome.
Thank you, Rolan. It's good to be here.
So I think a good place to start is to talk about some of the trends that we see in digital publishing these days. And I think what we want to do is call out some of the areas that we know most of the folks in this room are working in as you think about growing your digital business or getting your content out online. So we want to hit a couple of those broad categories, and I'll list off a couple here, and I think David will probably jump in on a couple as well. So first I want to talk about discovery. I think it's basically a fact to say that most people realize that people are starting their web experience through search these days. And so when you think about your site and how people come to your site or how they find your content, they're finding your content through search, which means they're coming into your site or your digital property, your web property through multiple points of entry, not always necessarily through your home page, though obviously home pages and portals are continue to be a very impactful piece of our business overall.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, search is a great start, but I don't think we've found the right solution yet for really driving discoverability of content. Search, portals, those types of things are a great way. Curation is another way to do that. But I think we'd all agree there's no shortage of content, but it's just finding the right content at the right time in the right place. That's the key. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to solve in MSN, and I know the industry is focusing on it as well.
Exactly. Amazing video experiences, and I think more and more for digital publishers, it's the recognition that users coming in are looking for really amazing video experiences, large format players, video experiences that live above the fold, video experiences that are engaging, and people want to enter into those video experiences very quickly as well. I think that's something to think about. They come to your page, they're already prepared, they're thinking, hey, I'm going to see something really cool, something interactive, something interesting here. And there's a strong expectation, I think, these days that they want to have this really amazing video experience.
Yeah, we see that the internet's really becoming a medium for entertainment, very much like the TV, and so we really want it to be an immersive experience. The production qualities are on par with what we see on traditional TV, on the internet, and so that line I think is going to continue to blur. And then, I mean, optimally, I think what you're going to see is the PC and the computer growing into the TV as we see today in the smart TVs and stuff like that. But I think even deeper integration as we go forward. So there'll be very little differentiation, I think, both in content and experience between digital video and traditional video.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, and just even talking about the quality of the digital that you see online with download speeds increasing, that the quality of that video content is grown immensely over the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. The last piece is branded content, and I know that there's a lot of discussion here at NATPE around content in general. But I think that there still continues to be an appetite on behalf of brands to create branded content. This is content that's anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes long and has a great story to tell. And to David's point, has the production value and the creative value, but has either a brand baked into it or has some kind of brand messaging built into it as well. And I continue to see branded content as something that's a big part of the marketplace continuing.
Yeah. Can you talk? Yeah, I was going to ask you to talk briefly about that, how that model looks, the brand funding the programming, et cetera.
Well, so basically, I think branded content is coming out of this scenario, both in traditional and digital TV, where the standalone ads are just not necessarily the optimal experience. I think we all would like to change that model, but that's basically how we can monetize today. And so I think it's more about integrating the brand's message into content, if you will. And what we're seeing is a number of top 100 brands coming forward with really engaging stories about their products, about their experience, or bringing comedy to really engage that audience. Because, at least on the digital side, I mean, people can multitask during that pre-roll or post-roll ad, but they can really, I think, identify and connect when you integrate that message into the video itself.
How about the business model behind that, generally speaking, in terms of the brand coming to you, funding the programming, and how the audience piece fits into that?
Generally, the brand will come to us, and it'll be part of a bigger purchase. So they'll be buying flat or display inventory. They'll be buying traditional video, pre-roll, post-roll ads. But they'll also have this additional product. And so they will actually bring that to us and say, we'd like to have you put it on the network. we would obviously fund it and those types of things, but it's generally produced by them. We've done a few actually for brands of long form ourselves. Yep. But so the model's kind of all over the place in terms of how it comes.
So it's part of a larger buy, essentially.
For us, that's how we engage. It's
yeah.
part of a larger buy, yeah.
Cool.
So here's a couple more trends that I think we're seeing in this digital space, that the lines between, and to pick up on what David's saying, is the lines between advertorial and editorial content are getting blurrier than ever. With the rise of native ad platforms, even digital publishers themselves creating their own native ad platforms, integrating advertising experiences into the content in very unique and interesting ways, that the lines between sort of advertising and editorial content are blurring more than ever, and we see this across a range of publishers, entertainment, news, et cetera, across a range of verticals.
And that's somewhat challenging for us because we really want to keep editorial and advertorial content separate on the network. We don't feel like we have the ability today to identify effectively advertorial content that coexists in the same channel, if you will, as advertorial content. And so we'll talk about some of the solutions that we did to address that in a few minutes. But again, I think it's going to blur. I think it's going to change. It's an exciting time to be in this business. I mean, I love the theme of the conference, which is disruption and stuff. And so we're just seeing a lot of change, a lot of meshing of opportunities together. So.
Agreed, and it's something I think every publisher is thinking a lot about and really dealing with this. How do they deal with this content, and how are they going to draw those lines? The other thing is a continued overdependence on a single point of entry, not entry.
Yeah.
So many publishers continue to rely on their homepage, and for very good reasons, right? It's where they get a majority of their traffic. But those editorial resources become very important to them in terms of how do they build an audience over time. And I think many publishers continue to rely on that homepage, and as that, there's an overdependence on that point of entry in terms of how do they get audiences, how do they build an audience, and how do they get audiences to view pieces of content, whether it be video or otherwise, across the site. So a lot of the publishers that I speak with, and maybe Dave can speak to this as well, is they continue to really rely on those homepage and editorial resources as a way to build audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the homepage is key to the overall traffic generation for the site. And I mean, the politics, and I mean in a very productive way, the priorities that we're trying to balance in terms of all the initiatives for the site. What we wanted to do is focus on, what can we do to diversify that? I mean, why I'll be overly dependent on one tool when you have to fight so hard for that real estate, and you're also taking opportunities or opportunity costs away from other efforts by over-relying in that space. So.
Great, and the last point here is just that many of the buyers on the agency side still come from traditional TV, and I think we'll touch on that in a minute.
Let me speak to that a little bit. I mean, again, I find at least our ad folks are saying, when we're dealing with the agencies and they're making purchases, a lot of those buyers are coming from a traditional background. And as we all know, this digital video is just growing like mad. It's very complicated. I kind of call it a little bit of the Wild West. And so they're really looking for one relationship to kind of bring that full package, and then also articulate, the effect of digital video in the context of the traditional model. And I think that's why we got the GRP debate that's going on right now. Should we measure digital and GRPs? It kind of works for TV, and those kind of things. And so I think they really want us to simplify that for them. And that's the barrier that we really seek to remove for those buyers, because we want them to be comfortable getting into the digital space, and we want them to be a one-stop kind of shop. And so they rely on some of the larger publishers like MSN to provide that guidance and that one-stop shop, if you will.
That's a really good point. So this is just a brief overview, I think, of what we've been talking about, but it also, I think this slide captures the solutions that Alphabird has been working on in our Publisher Solutions Group over the last couple of years to really work closely with publishers in each of these key 4 areas, right? So monetization. And this work is really about improving CPMs, content. We work with publishers around management, development, and distribution of their content. That's more of a technology play. How do you distribute your content out across your own sites, or if you are syndicating that content in syndication as well. Data, I think this really goes to the point that David was just making. More increasingly, as we run these campaigns, it's important for us to be able to capture data around our audience, who our audiences are, where do they live, how did they come to our site, how do we measure these audiences. Increasingly very important as we think about how to monetize content through digital publishing. And lastly is audience, and I think this is the area where Alphabird has been doing a big portion of our work, is really working directly with publishers to scale up large targeted audiences that are relevant, that are engaged, that come in and view video content, so they engage with your content, and are multi-platform, so they come across your site, but they go to microsites and other places as well. So this slide, I think, captures the key areas that in terms of Alphabird's work with digital publishers. At the heart of Alphabird is Grail, which is a proprietary piece of technology. And what this slide really captures is our work around how do we scale these audiences. And I think that digital publishers are faced with a tremendous number of sources of audience these days. Recommendation widgets, again, native ad platforms, traffic partners, links. There's just all these different ways out there to drive audiences. And what really Alphabird has done is taken a technology approach to say that we understand all these different sources of audiences, both paid and unpaid. And what you can do is really reach out across all these different platforms and blend these audiences directly in to engage in content. So this is the heart of really our work over the last couple of years, and how we've been working with publishers in terms of scaling an audience.
Just to add to that, simplify that. You could never buy audiences before, if you think about it. So think about television, where you're buying Oprah and you're trying to reach a mom with a household income in the six-figure range. You have no idea if that's the right person watching that show, or if that mom who's supposedly watching Oprah didn't get up to go get a sandwich. In the world of digital advertising, and this sounds really simple, but people really forget this kind of epiphany, which is that you can literally buy audiences today, and that's what Rolan is talking about. It gets very complex, what it takes to buy audiences today, when you talk about getting data, where that person lives, are they on mobile, are they on a tablet, et cetera, but that's really at the heart of what's happening here.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that, Chase, as well, is that as we move forward and as data becomes a much stronger piece of how you buy audience, that this is going to continue to evolve and become even more sophisticated over time. So you'll be able to find audiences, buy those audiences, and direct them into content in more sophisticated ways. Again, more of a data-driven approach over time. And I think this is really exciting as publishers think about how to scale audiences. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, as we get into the case study, about what MSN is doing in this space. And first of all, I just want to focus in on the video initiatives right now. And we launched a couple months ago a new destination on MSN here in the US. We call that destination Stage Door. And again, I alluded to this earlier, but again, more and more people are looking to the internet for pure entertainment, not just information, not infotainment, but pure entertainment, which is a lean-back experience, kind of a passive experience like you have in your own living room. So we wanted to make sure that we had a destination that would serve that purpose, if you will. We feel like we're right now, for portals, we're the only audience-based lineup. And what that means is that we really have defined these channels based on common interests of certain demographics, certain psychographics. And instead of forcing you to go to separate channels for sports, for entertainment, for news, etc., we mash that all together into one experience targeted at you. And I think that's a really big differentiation in the marketplace today. The other thing in terms of discoverability we talked about earlier is that one of our, I would say, early investments there, because of how much content's out there, is this focus on highly targeted, highly curated content. And so we really rely on our editors to curate the right clips. And with the data behind the scenes, I mean, real-time data, we know exactly what resonates, what doesn't. We can make changes on the fly. And we've got catalogs of content, so we can really, really fine-tune that experience for that audience real time. In fact, we have 9 different channels today that are live. We take some down, we put some up. We're thinking about expanding that. But really, again, focusing on what exactly resonates with that very audience. We're proud to say in the US, we're the only portal that's actually growing video engagement year over year. And again, we measure that by videos per viewer, if you will. And for MSN, we've probably been a little bit quiet in terms of our focus on video, but it is a top priority for our network, and I think you're going to see a lot of things to come. Beyond Stage Door, our video presence on our homepage has just increased exponentially and stuff. So, and the reason being is video consumption on the internet is growing about 40% year over year, as well as the ad dollars are growing at least 40% year over year. So it's a great business to be in. The demand's there, the monetization's there, and we're going to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think this is, just to recap that, I mean, this is a validation of the kinds of experiences that folks coming online are looking for. Large format players, beautiful video experience, and I think that Stage Door really delivers that.
And this is all streaming, and you can sit back and it'll autoplay, or you can take control. So it's really your choice on how you want to engage with the experience. So specific to this case study, and again, it'll be pretty brief, but we were, again, many of our advertisers are coming to us and saying we're going to buy certain inventory, but we also have this branded content. And we would like to we'd like to have it on a brand safe experience like MSN. And typically this is a long form advertorial piece. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes with probably more of a subtle branding message or a subtle story in there. Very highly engaging content. I mean, really, really good stuff. Now, our challenge is, again, and we alluded to this earlier, is how do we separate the editorial experience from the advertorial experience in the network? And again, this new content that's coming is so well created and engaging. We just felt like we had to come up with a solution that would really differentiate the experience, but still provide the value proposition of hosting on an MSN. The other thing, and we talked about this, is, gosh, this homepage. I mean, yeah, we're already driving traffic to this particular campaign, but do we want to bet the entire campaign on the homepage driving that? And the truth of the matter is we'll probably come up short in terms of what we could do. So we really wanted to diversify how we drive that traffic in. And that's actually where our relationship with Alphabird began. And actually, this is one of many relationships that we do have together. The last thing, and I think this is really important, is that we had to find a financial model that worked for all parties. As part of my focus, I've been looking at a lot of different inbound distribution solutions across the industry. And some of them, really come in very inexpensive. Some come in way over the top. And there's just no money left for us as a publisher paying those types of CPMs to the inbound solutions. And so we really needed to find a solution that was going to be attractive to all parties, if you will. And so our solution basically was, let's create a microsite for this content. And again, that way that the content can be immersive, it can be a large screen player, it still has the branding of MSN, but it doesn't have all the, maybe what you might call a little bit of clutter, if you will, of the portal experience trying to get you to go to other sites, but really a focused, immersive experience for that particular campaign. And in order to kind of take the reliance off the homepage, we worked with Alphabird in terms of their audience solution to place contextual text ads in search engines, in social networking sites and websites to drive that traffic to that particular microsite. And that microsite had to be really responsive because that transfer, that person was clicking on this text ad and we wanted to immediately deliver that experience to them. And the results, phenomenal. At first you might think, they got transferred and they jump off after a few seconds. No, the completion rates were well into the 60s and 70s, and multiple streams were occurring as a result of that. So the solution so far has worked really well for us.
Great. So we have a case study that we can walk through quickly here. It's going to recap many of the things that David's talking about in terms of driving in the audience and really getting audience into these immersive experiences. But I'm also looking at the time and realizing we've got about 5 minutes and 17 seconds left. And I want to leave some time for questions questions as well. So what do you think, Chase? Should we maybe zip through these slides quickly and then leave some questions? I hope there's some questions out there. All right, so we did a campaign for an automotive brand with MSN along the lines we've been talking about with a custom branded microsite. We used our contextual text ad solution, video SEM services to really drive the audience to those microsites. We delivered new users into these pages. And really what we were doing is to drive additional video views and get folks into that immersive video experience. To David's point about really creating a video experience that gets people engaged quickly, I think that sometimes there's this idea that a user experience and monetization are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that could be potentially true for the display world, where you think that, look, an experience where you have 7 or 8 display units on a page is obviously not a good user experience. But I think it's the opposite in the video world, where actually it makes monetization sense to have pages load very quickly, so that monetization and user experience are even more aligned in video than they are in display. So I think that's something important to think about. The flight dates of the campaign were about a month long, about 3.5 million views delivered. The content was placed on a custom Microsoft landing page. And the total views, again, are a little over 3 million views. And we saw a 75% conversion rate, which I think is pretty interesting to think that 75% of the folks who discovered this page stayed and watched a significant portion of the video, around 60%.
Yeah, I think another takeaway here is that, and we see this across a lot of the brands that we engage with, is that they want some control over how the traffic is generated, and meaning they don't want peaks and valleys. They want it to be kind of baseline across the entire campaign, and we're able to deliver that to them through the placement of these text ads.
What was the definition of view? 10 seconds, 20 seconds?
Well, ComScore defines it as 3 seconds. And so when we look competitively, we look at 3 seconds as a view.
How long does the content piece start to finish?
It can be, in this case, it was about 3 minutes each clip.
But we also measured completion rates by the quartile, so we saw that 60% number, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was folks who watched, I think, over 75% of the video.
That was actually completing the video and going on to start another stream. So again, it really depends on the production quality of the piece. In this case, with this automotive brand, had A-list talent, highly well-produced, super engaging. And that's what we're seeing for a lot of this branded content, is just really well done, engaging content. So completion rates have not been an issue whatsoever.
Yeah, and getting back to the screenshot, and again, talking about the display world versus the video world, really by creating a page that gets people into the video experience quickly, we helped the monetization efforts. And by actually taking a lot of things off the page that you might normally want to put on there. And again, I think this screen shows how it's a large format player really right above the fold. When someone lands on this page, they immediately are engaged in this immersive experience.
Yeah, I mean, less is more in this case, I think, and it really worked very, very well for us.
Well, I think that's the end of our presentation. We've got about 1.5 minutes, so I went a little over the 5 minutes of Q&A. But please, if anyone has any questions, now would be the opportunity. If you want to save your questions till the end, I'll be here. All three of us will be here in the room afterwards, and we can talk offline as well. But please, any questions?
I have a question. At the top of the funnel where you were acquiring the viewers, was it only text ads, or was there email and the display ads that were used?
So typically with a campaign like this, we'll use a variety of sources. We've tested email, we've tested display as well, and we'll typically use those sources. At the end of the day, the text ads tend to perform the best in terms of scaling a large audience and giving us the best conversion rates.
Yeah.
questions?
Yep.
Yeah, it's videos per viewer, per visit, I should say, videos per visit. So, and again, it's growing with the stage door experience because it's a lean back experience and people are becoming more passive and engaged during that experience. Yes.
Is there a subscription hook at the stage door where you're trying to subscribe to that channel?
You know, we're in the process of adding that feature right now so that people can get notified of new content and they can actually then revisit that site. And so that's coming in the near future for us.
Any other questions? We're getting a blinking red light up here, so I assume that means they want us to wind it down. But any other thoughts, questions?
Yeah. Well, we'll be here. So feel free to come on up. Love to chat more about what we're doing and our experience with Alphabird.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.